To the Brexit Party chairman and businessman Richard Tice, who's standing by to give us his comments on the shock news that Britain's broken asylum system is costing you, me, and indeed him £1 billion a year. And Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, is saying that. So that's the price of what's going on. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning to you, Kevin. Well, the truth is, Kevin, that actually this is not a shock to us in the Brexit Party. A number of us, Nigel, started in the summer. I've been saying it when you and I last spoke some weeks ago. We were talking about huge numbers, hundreds of millions of pounds of the cost of keeping some 50,000 illegal asylum seekers in hotels. And so it's no surprise to us, particularly when we realise that actually the government is paying vast sums to big private sector operators like Serco, to manage this process. So we've been using that number of £1 billion for a couple of months now. And finally, what we're seeing is actually the Home Secretary, once again, is following our lead and finally admitting the truth. They never wanted to have this debate. They never wanted to own up to the true cost to everybody, your listeners, you and I, the British taxpayer, but that is the reality.
Apparently we have 40,000 people, at least 40,000 people, asylum system seekers stuck in the system. In other words, here, as you say, all nicely tucked up in pleasant hotels, one of which hilariously has a golf course and a spa. So these people are being processed through this sluggish non-system. And we learned this week that Priti Patel has been blue sky thinking with her cohorts, coming up with plans like a wave machine to send the dinghies back to France, putting some sort of barrier down the channel to stop them crossing, putting them on islands, the Isle of Wight, Shetlands, Isle of Man, even the Ascension Islands. This has apparently been leaked allegedly by the Foreign Office to screw up Priti and her attempts to get this system in order. My point being, it's just one massive great mess, isn't it?
Well, look, I think we should admire, creative thinking, brainstorming. That's actually how you find solutions to problems. So, if that's true, that's what Priti Patel has been talking about, in a sense, that's, again, what we were talking about on this show weeks and weeks ago. The idea of actually not letting the illegal immigrants into the UK, but actually whether you put them on disused cruise ships or other things, or indeed, small islands that actually want to keep them offshore. So, we've been saying this for many, many weeks. I admire the idea of some brainstorming. What, of course, is troubling, as you just intimated, is civil servants, sort of the metropolitan liberal civil servants who are deliberately leaking in order to try and undermine Priti Patel. And, she talks a good game, and it's great if she's coming up with bold, ambitious ideas. The real challenge, and I think what British taxpayers want, is actually for her to follow through on these points. It's quite obvious. You can see the successful example of what they did in Australia. They prevented illegal immigrants from coming to Australia. They kept them away, and they made it very clear that anybody who came illegally across the water would never, ever be given asylum. And if you make that abundantly clear, and if you say it is illegal, you will not be granted asylum, and therefore you don't need all these armies of lawyers, carrying out appeal after appeal to prevent you being deported, because it's never going to happen. That's the way to deal with it. And if they then realise, actually, they're going to be treated as illegals, they're going to be kept offshore, then that will be a much, much more successful way of dealing with this crisis, as Australia has successfully proved, than putting them up in 4-star hotels with golf courses and spas at vast expense and paying them an amount of money every week.
I agree with you, Richard, that Priti Patel, there's no doubt her heart is in the right place, and she's doing her level best to try to get to grips with this growing crisis. But once again, it's a Home Secretary laden down by this lumbering mess called the Home Office. 5,000 staff, nearly all of whom aren't even going to work at the moment, and who, frankly, have never supported attempts to sort this crisis out. They wallow in the bureaucratic system that has been going on for ages, that allows someone to come across the channel and basically say, I hereby claim political asylum, and therefore they are then allowed to stay in this country for at least 2 years while we try to sort this situation out. But another story emerged this week that we are actually sending back, having actually reached this rare point where we've decided that some of these asylum seekers do not warrant staying in this country. We're sending back a vanishingly small number. And because of our problems with the EU, it looks as if we're going to be banned from sending them back in the long-term future. I mean, when will there be light at the end of the tunnel with what seems to be a quagmire of bureaucracy and a failure by civil servants to recognise that we have a Home Secretary who wants to sort this problem out and wants to efficiently deal with asylum seekers, like Australia, get them packing, sent on their way within 3 or 4 weeks?
Well, I think it's about time, Kevin, that actually these bureaucratic civil servants in the Home Office, and you alluded to the Foreign Office, they actually start to listen to the people who pay their wages and who voted for the ministers for this government, which is the British people. They gave a very clear mandate. They wanted the issue of immigration dealt with, not only just as part of the Brexit process, but actually full stop. And I do respect Priti Patel's ambition to sort this out, but she has to have competent, determined people who believe in it, who are actually going to implement it. And let's use the example, for example, of the woeful Ollie Robbins negotiating the Brexit deal for Theresa May against the brilliant David Frost negotiating the Brexit deal for Boris Johnson. So far, so good. That's a case of someone who believes in what they're negotiating and actually carrying out the wishes of the ministers. And that's what we need in the Home Office. And frankly, if they're not prepared to do it, she needs to have a proper clear out and bring in some people who will implement the wishes of the people, which is to sort this out, to stop wasting huge sums of taxpayers' money. I think you and I probably read this week, there's an example of an aeroplane that was due to take dozens and dozens of people back to France this week, and actually because of ambulance chasing legal appeals by lawyers, only one illegal asylum seeker was actually taken on this aeroplane. Just think of the cost per returnee. It's just mind-boggling.
Yes.
And this is just a blatant, horrible waste of your money, your listeners' money, my money, taxpayers' cash, hard-earned cash, that we'd rather invest in important things, vital British public services.
Yes. Currently, of course, technically, we have the right to send asylum seekers back to the first European country that they arrived in Europe at. Recently, we've tried to send 3 asylum seekers back to Spain because that's where they came in illegally. It went just as they were about to get on the plane. They had been officially deported. In came their team of highly paid immigration lawyers, went straight to a judge and said, oh, but if you send these 3 people back to Spain, I mean, they were Middle Eastern people, obviously, from Syria, possibly Afghanistan, that kind of thing. If you send them back to Spain, they might face hardship and even may struggle to get a home. So the judge said, oh, well, in that case, they'll have to stay. This is the kind of mindset we have to get rid of. We have to, like Australia, as you said earlier, Richard, if your claim for political asylum is predicated on the fact that you arrived here illegally, that you sought to get on a dinghy and break into this country, then your claim for political asylum is negated from that point on, and it shouldn't take too long to process that claim, and within 3 weeks ship you back to where you came from.
It's very simple. If the law is clear, as you say, that it becomes illegal for anybody coming via that route, they will never be granted asylum. They will be treated as an illegal immigrant. They will essentially be detained in some form of, whether it's some form of prison or detention centre, preferably offshore. Once people know that and the message gets out, guess what? Just like Australia, the problem will be resolved. It requires determination, and you set a clear 3-week limit. You know, it's going to be dealt with, looked at, sorted in 3 weeks, and that's the end of the matter. And then they'll know. And then actually, this vile trade of people smuggling, pushing them into modern day slavery here in the UK, which is where the vast majority of them tragically will end up. That will stop, and the sooner the better. It's the most humane, best thing for the illegal immigrants coming over here, that they don't even try to embark on that lethal, very dangerous journey. They know where they stand, they're not going to be allowed, and therefore actually they simply won't even start to come, and therefore they won't end up in conditions of modern day slavery. And there's a very, very good article in the Sunday Telegraph saying that actually the humane thing is to be tougher on this, so that actually you prevent people from embarking on that perilous journey across the Channel in the first place. And I would commend anybody, any of the listeners, read that article in the Sunday Telegraph. It's brilliant that actually it's more humane for them not even to start the journey than to take that dangerous journey and then essentially be detained and go through all the time, the uncertainty, the lawyers when they get here. That's the much better way to do it. Everybody knows where they stand. It requires competent, determined people in order to implement the wishes of the Home Secretary and the British people.
Yes, and I think the sheer danger, the physical danger of the crossing is going to become far more prominent in the argument as the weather gets worse, as you can see it today, because them coming across in mill pond calm seas over the summer is one thing, but once they start trying it now, it's going to become very life-threatening. Let me give you an example of where I think you just don't get joined-up thinking in government. So the government has hired former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott as a trade envoy, an expert on trade. How do we get trade after we leave the EU? Fine. This is the architect of the brilliant system that Australia put in place, the 3-week system, put all the people coming in from Indonesia to Australia illegally onto an island, processed them in 3 weeks, and he cured their migrant problem very, very quickly by getting that message across to the migrants: you will not be allowed to stay. Why have we employed Tony Abbott as a trade envoy and not an advisor on how to sort our damn migrant crisis out? Because he knows how to do it.
Well, I think, in fairness, actually, he's got a lot of experience on the trade negotiations, and we do need that sorted as well. So I don't begrudge him being employed as a trade envoy.
But you get my point.
Look, in an ideal world, Kevin, I'd have him do a bit of both. If he's not
yeah.
too busy on things, then frankly, let's have him do both, because he's got a successful track record. And that's the sort of people that we should be engaging in senior positions, as opposed to permanent secretaries who will not carry out the wishes of the British people who elected this government in to sort some of these things out. It's really not that difficult. It just requires determined people, as you say, the likes of Tony Abbott. We need his twin brother and his twin sister to come and help us with that.
Yes, the controversial siblings. Are we? Can you still hear me? I thought we had a.
I can.
Okay, good.
I'm being slightly. I'm deliberately sort of just trying to make a point that it's about really good people coming in and helping out.
Yeah.
And actually, where that happens, time and again, you get better results. You look
Richard,
at the situation.
I've proposed this to you before, and this is my brilliant plan, and I don't know why Priti doesn't think like this. What she should do, in my view, is to set up an elite department within the Home Office. I don't know how many civil servants it would take, but she should get a department specifically there to process asylum seeker applications and to get them done within 3 weeks. That's their job. Why doesn't she set about doing this?
It's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to that, Kevin. Either she hasn't got the determination to get this implemented, or she asks for it to be done, and then actually it just gets watered down and lost in the morass, the bureaucratic blob of the Home Office. It's exactly what she should do. She needs to bring in, one or two top people and say, create this elite team and let's get it done. They become like a sort of a group of special forces to deal with urgent, vital issues that come up. And, in the military across the world, you have special forces who are highly trained and they come out to do a job and then they go back to the base. And that's essentially what the Home Office maybe needs. Some really, really successful people, executives who can get on, crack some heads together, get things done, sort it out, get it implemented, and then move on to the next urgent problem.
Yes, and there will be more urgent problems, but at the moment we've still got to sort this out. Thank you very much for your time, Richard. I know that you and I will be talking about the migrant crisis again very, very soon, because it never seems to go away. Thank you so much. That's Richard Tice there, chairman of the Brexit Party and businessman, talking common sense as usual about the migrant crisis